It was just after midnight on July 19, 2010, when a Germantown police operator in Memphis, Tennessee received this 911 call.
Germantown 911, where's your emergency? Hello? Hello? Hello?
With no one saying anything on the call, the operator was unable to determine the caller's identity or the nature of the situation. By the time the caller's identity would be revealed, the reality was shocking and horrific. Welcome back to Crime or Mystery, where we cover crimes, mysteries, and everything in between. Lorenzen Wright, a highly talented and successful basketball player, was born on November 4, 1975, in Oxford, Mississippi, and later relocated with his family to Memphis, Tennessee. Lorenzen developed a love for basketball through his father, Herb, a retired NBA player. After leaving the NBA, Herb joined the Memphis Police Department. Tragically, when Lorenzen was just 7 years old, Herb was shot, presumably while on duty, which left him paralyzed and wheelchair-bound. Despite this setback, Herb continued to impart his basketball knowledge onto Lorenzen, who aspired to be a professional basketball player like his dad. By his teenage years, Lorenzen had reached nearly 6 feet 11 inches and became a local basketball sensation, excelling in high school and playing in the highly competitive Amateur Athletic Union, attracting scouts nationwide. By age 16, he began a relationship with his coach's 21-year-old daughter, Shara Robinson. Despite their age difference, the relationship blossomed, and they remained together even after Lorenzen joined the University of Memphis team in 1994. That same year, Shara became pregnant with the couple's first child, Lorenzen Jr., but even as a new father, Lorenzen maintained his focus on basketball. In 1996, he was selected as the 7th overall pick in the NBA draft by the Los Angeles Clippers, marking a significant milestone in his career. Lorenzen basically became a millionaire overnight, and the young family moved to Los Angeles. The couple married in 1998 and welcomed their second child in 1999. That season, Lorenzen was traded to the Atlanta Hawks, bringing him closer to his hometown. He signed a multi-million-dollar contract, and the family enjoyed the benefits. They purchased an impressive 13,000-square-foot home in the suburbs. Lorenzen indulged on things he had only dreamed of as a child. He bought several Ferraris and other luxury vehicles, opened a restaurant, and treated friends to lavish vacations. But he also gave back, contributing to local charities. Shara also benefited from the fortune, with Lorenzen showering her in expensive jewelry. Their family ultimately grew to 7 children, 3 girls and 4 boys. Yet it was not all luxury at the Wright household. The couple also faced their share of challenges. In 2003, while Lorenzen was playing for the Memphis Grizzlies, his hometown team, Shara delivered devastating news. Their daughter, Sierra, had died from sudden infant death syndrome just days before her first birthday. The loss profoundly affected both Shara and Lorenzen, exacerbating an already troubled marriage. Arguments between the couple increased, leading to Lorenzen immersing himself more into his career and even spending time with other women. By this time, there were rumors of infidelity on both sides. Shara also alleged instances of domestic abuse, although no formal charges were ever filed against Lorenzen. Eventually, the couple appeared to work through their issues, renewing their vows in a small ceremony in 2007. However, Lorenzen's NBA career began to decline over the following 2 years as he played for the Sacramento Kings and then the Cleveland Cavaliers. By 2009, after 13 seasons, the 33-year-old Lorenzen Wright decided to retire, having earned an estimated $55 million from basketball. The year 2010 marked a significant change for Lorenzen. With his basketball career behind him, he sought a fresh start and decided to end his marriage with Shara. Lorenzen relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, while Shara remained in Memphis to allow their children to continue attending the same school. Shara began to chart her own path, working toward becoming an ordained minister at her church, while Lorenzen frequently returned to Tennessee to visit his family. By July 2010, the couple appeared to have established a civil co-parenting arrangement. On the 18th, Lorenzen traveled to Memphis to spend the weekend with Shara and the children, with a plan to stay at their home. That evening, he went out for dinner with some of his former fraternity brothers from the University of Memphis. Afterwards, he and his friend Phil went to watch Phil's son play basketball. While there, Phil saw Lorenzen receiving multiple texts from Shara. And later that night, Lorenzen asked Phil to drop him off at Shara's house after the game. Around 10 p.m., Phil dropped Lorenzen off and asked him to call him later, hoping to see him again before he left town. Lorenzen assured him he would before exiting the vehicle at Shara's house. However, when 2 days passed with no contact from Lorenzen, Phil grew concerned and attempted to call him, but the calls went unanswered. Lorenzen's mother, Deborah, also grew worried when she didn't hear from her son for a few days, especially since Lorenzen missed his sister's baby shower in Memphis on July 21st, with no word to anyone. And this was unlike him. At 6'1" and 255 pounds, Lorenzen was a well-known local celebrity and NBA star, making his sudden disappearance very obvious. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation, on July 22nd, Deborah filed a report with the Kieraville Police Department located near Memphis. Given Lorenzen's fame, the police quickly began their investigation, initially interviewing Shara, the person he was supposed to be staying with during his visit. But her statements to the police were both alarming and concerning. She reported that in the weeks prior to Lorenzen's disappearance, strange men armed with guns began appearing at her home. According to her, they would pound on the door at night, calling for Lorenzen, but she didn't know why until the night of July 18th, the night Lorenzen vanished. She recounted to the police that after Lorenzen was dropped off by his friend Phil, she overheard him on the phone, discussing a substantial amount of cash, approximately $110,000. She said the same men came to the house around 3 a.m., and Lorenzen took a box from the house which suspected contained drugs and left with the men in a car. Shara said this was the last time she saw or heard from her ex-husband. Police were curious to learn the identities of the unknown men with whom Lorenzen left, and what he had taken in the box. To gather more information, they examined his phone records and found that his last call was to 911. The call was traced to cell towers in Germantown, a suburb of Memphis. Officers reached out to Germantown authorities to inquire about a 911 call from someone named Lorenzen Wright. Germantown officers said they had no record of such a call, but they did recall getting an untraceable call around that time, which they had dismissed. Surprisingly, despite the gunshots being heard in that 911 call, it went uninvestigated until the officers working on Lorenzen's case stumbled upon it. By that time, 8 days had passed since Lorenzen disappeared. On July 28th, police traced the call to a wooded area in southeast Memphis. With the assistance of cadaver dogs, they located 34-year-old Lorenzen Wright, who had been shot to death, and his body was already decomposing due to the summer temperatures. At the crime scene, authorities discovered shell casings from 2 distinct firearms, a 9mm revolver and a small-caliber handgun, indicating that there was likely more than one shooter. Lorenzen's wallet and cell phone were missing, but he still had all of his jewelry and a significant amount of cash, suggesting that the motive was not robbery, and the intention was to conceal his identity. Lorenzen had been shot 5 times, twice in the chest, once in the forearm, and twice in the face. He had bullet fragments lodged in his skull, chest, and right forearm. To the police, this suggested that the murder was personal rather than random. Less than a week later, over 3,000 people gathered at the FedEx Forum in Memphis for Lorenzen's televised funeral, the same place where he dominated the court years earlier. The violent death of Lorenzen baffled many, including his family, as police began to explore potential theories. Was Shara correct? Could it be true that Lorenzen was involved in drugs and was killed due to a drug deal gone wrong that evening? During their investigations, the police discovered that by the time of his death, majority of Lorenzen's earnings was gone. They learned that during their marriage, Shara had spent a significant amount of their funds without Lorenzen's knowledge. By 2010, they had lost 2 of their luxury homes to foreclosure, and many of their high-end sports cars had been repossessed. It appeared that the Wrights had been living well beyond their means for some time, and although Lorenzen had been retired for only about a year, he was further burdened with alimony and child support obligations. With this revelation, the police began to consider the possibility that maybe Shara's drug deal theory was true. Maybe Lorenzen had turned to drugs to make extra money. But Lorenzen's mother, Deborah, denied any assertion that her son would ever engage in drug dealing regardless of his financial hardships. His friends echoed this sentiment. Furthermore, the toxicology reports from Lorenzen's autopsy indicated there were no drugs in his system. Law enforcement soon realized Shara was the only one proposing the drug deal theory, and they could find no evidence to support her claims of Lorenzen's involvement in drug activities. It took time for the police to eventually dismiss this theory, but from the outset, Deborah was convinced that Shara had more information than she was revealing. However, when authorities attempted to engage with Shara in the months following Lorenzen's death, she was uncooperative. Despite this, law enforcement did not view her as a suspect. Shara was a mother of 6, devoutly religious, and working towards becoming an ordained minister. Additionally, she was now in a relationship with a police officer, so the case went cold. Weeks turned into months, then years, as Lorenzen's case languished. In the meantime, Shara continued her life. She became a minister at Mount Olive Baptist Church, established a non-profit called Born to Prosper Ministries to assist local children, and eventually regained stability with the aid of Lorenzen's life insurance policy. However, this stability would not last. The children had received a $1 million payout from the policy. Yet within 10 months following Lorenzen's death, Shara, who was responsible for overseeing the payout for her 6 children, had blown through $970,000. Consequently, in 2013, Lorenzen's father initiated a lawsuit against Shara after discovering that the funds intended for the children had been used for luxury expenses, such as $32,000 on a Cadillac Escalade, $26,000 on a Lexus, $69,000 on furniture, $339,000 on a down payment for a home, and $111,000 on a trip to New York. The life insurance policy was not the only financial benefit Shara obtained from Lorenzen's death. She also received insurance and pension proceeds from the NBA teams he had played for. Ultimately, she lost the lawsuit, leading to the assignment of a professional to oversee the remaining minimal insurance funds. The following year, Shara pursued a new interest, writing fiction. In 2015, she published a novel titled Mr. Tell Me Anything. Ironically, it was about a woman married to an abusive star basketball player. Having turned a new leaf, she relocated to Riverside, California, with her family and aimed to move forward. However, she was unaware that new evidence had been submitted to the police back in 2012, who were waiting for the situation to unfold. In 2012, a man by the name of Jimmy Martin was arrested for the murder of his girlfriend. Facing life imprisonment, he approached the authorities, telling them he had information they might want to hear and that he wished to cut a deal. The police agreed to meet with him, and he told them he was Shara Wright's cousin, and that he had information regarding the murder of her ex-husband, Lorenzen Wright. The police subsequently visited Jimmy in prison to gather more details. He revealed that 2 months before Lorenzen's murder, Shara called him to her home. When he arrived, he noticed that Billy Ray Turner, Lorenzen's former landscaper, was also there. Although Billy had a criminal history, He appeared to have turned his life around by starting a landscaping business and becoming a deacon at Shara's church. Billy Ray was in a relationship with Shara, a relationship that started while she was still married to Lorenzen. That evening, Shara told Jimmy she could offer him money, but she needed a favor. Jimmy said that's when Shara turned to him and Billy and said, "I need you to kill Lorenzen." According to Jimmy, after agreeing to the plan, he and Billy traveled to Atlanta in 2010, where Lorenzen lived following his divorce. One night, they attempted to break into his condo to execute the murder, but Lorenzen was not home. Instead, they encountered Lorenzen's roommate sleeping on the couch. The plan had failed, so they reported back to Shara. Undeterred, she instructed them to wait until Lorenzen returned to Memphis. So in July, Jimmy, Shara, and Billy drove around searching for an ideal location to carry out the murder, and Shara chose a wooded area she used to go to as a child. Shara decided to entice Lorenzen to visit her in Memphis. She began texting him regularly, sending flirtatious messages that fueled his hopes of rekindling their relationship. A friend would later disclose that shortly before his murder, Lorenzen confided in him about contemplating a reconciliation with Shara. On the night he went missing, while at his friend's son's basketball game, Shara sent Lorenzen explicit messages. She was then able to persuade him to meet her to collect money from someone at their known meeting spot in the woods, where, unknown to him, Billy was already waiting. Upon arrival, Lorenzen exited the car, at which point Billy emerged from the shadows and pointed a gun at him. Lorenzen fled, with Billy in pursuit and Shara close behind. In a panic, Lorenzen attempted to call 911, then moments later, gunshots were heard. When Jimmy returned to town, Shara told him everything and asked for his help in disposing of the murder weapons. Jimmy informed the police that he knew exactly where the guns had been discarded, a lake in northern Mississippi. The police knew that recovering the weapons could corroborate Jimmy's story, so they traveled southeast to Walnut, Mississippi, and conducted an extensive search of the lake for the firearms, but found nothing. At this point, they started to question whether Jimmy was misleading them to cut a deal. Due to their inability to substantiate Jimmy's claims, the police held on to this information for years without disclosing it to the public. Meanwhile, Jimmy remained in jail for the murder of his girlfriend with no deal. The police believed there was insufficient evidence to arrest Shara or Billy, and even though new leads continued to surface, they consistently led to dead ends. Eventually, new investigators were assigned to the case to provide a fresh perspective, but still, no progress was made. This continued for an additional 5 years. The mystery surrounding Lorenzen Wright's death lingered in Memphis. In 2017, detectives revisited Jimmy's claims. They decided to search the lake once more all these years later, and this time, they recovered a gun. When it was sent to the crime lab, the police confirmed that its ballistics matched those from the crime scene, validating Jimmy Martin's statements. Unfortunately for Jimmy, no deal could be made to release him since he was serving time for the murder of his girlfriend. However, he was offered immunity from any charges related to Lorenzen's murder. Shara and Billy were not so lucky. On December 15, 2017, police arrested 46-year-old Shara at her residence in Riverside, California. She was extradited to Tennessee and charged with first-degree murder, premeditated murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and attempted first-degree murder. Billy Turner was also arrested and charged with the same offenses. Shara initially pleaded not guilty to all charges. However, in July 2019, she changed her plea to guilty for facilitating first-degree murder. She acknowledged her role in planning the crime, but asserted she did not physically carry it out. In the end, she received a 30-year sentence with the possibility of parole instead of the life term she could have received had she been found guilty. Billy Ray Turner was convicted on all charges and sentenced to life in prison. During her change of plea hearing, Lorenzen's mother, Deborah, thanked Shara for giving her grandchildren, stating, "To me, they are a little piece of Lorenzen. This is a piece of Lorenzen that we all get to cherish." In May 2022, Shara appeared before the parole board where her parole was denied. She is next eligible for a parole hearing in 2027. The ultimate victims of this tragedy, the couple's 6 children, had to learn the devastating truth that their mother had killed their father and that she was the one who subjected them to the trauma of their father's violent death. That was the tragic story of betrayal, greed, and murder. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to turn on your notifications to never miss an upload.